February 24th, 2004. The day Kelly Isaka believes he was resurrected from a sure death. Paramedics rushed Kelly here to Good Samaritan Hospital in Central Phoenix. He was alive, but his injuries were so severe, doctors put his chances of survival at less than 10%. If doctors couldn't save him, who could? Jerry, who lives in Peoria, is known the world over for being able to cure people's ailments, chronic pain, sickness, disease. Towering above Kelly's bed, Jerry raised his hands and began focusing.
The whole room just seemed like it just fell silent.
When I saw him there, I basically just let him know that it was all right to come back.
Kelly had survived. His doctors couldn't make sense of his progress.
They couldn't believe that he was progressing as fast as he was.
I have a dream that I see a tall white man. And she told me, oh yeah, what's his name? And I told him, I don't know. I told my wife, I don't know. And he grabbed my hand, he told me, I go in the wrong way, follow him.
It was then that Josie told her husband of Jerry Wills, a gentle giant who did what this family believes doctors could not have done on their own.
Hello and welcome everyone to A Modern Healer's Journey. My name is Tammy Bennett and I'm an Oriental medicine doctor practicing in Central Florida. I am hoping that you all will like and subscribe to my channel. I'm on both YouTube and Rumble. And I am very happy to have a guest whose video you just saw. His name is Jerry Wills. And I had the pleasure of listening to Jerry on the Coast to Coast show with Connie Willis probably 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago now. And Jerry, she said something about you being abandoned as a baby. And I wondered if that potential trauma in your early life has something to do with your gift as a healer.
I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think that I came in with a lot of facilities intact from a really early age. And I'm talking 3 years old or so. I saw things other people didn't see, but I didn't think about it. And I really wasn't old enough to vocalize and talk about it. By the time I was, 4 years old, I was already reading books. So my dad, who was alive at the time, bought lots of books for me to read. And not just kids' books, simple things. But I still had that ability. When he passed away when I was 7, we moved to Kentucky. And that is where a lot of things changed because I was now away from the big city, living back in the hills of Kentucky. And I was really exposed quite frequently, every day, every hour to, the wildlife and, the country living, let's say. And I was still seeing things that other people didn't see. But my gifts weren't just about healing. They were being able to hear what people were thinking, touching things and seeing the whole story behind them, psychometry. And of course, I guess mediumship, where I would actually see people who had passed away and was able to have a conversation with them. I saw them as clearly as I saw regular people, except these people would just sometimes fade right out and be gone. I focused more on healing because I saw that as being a way of helping others, and that's what I'm best known for. But the full range of what my capacities are, I've never really developed quite a few of them, but they still linger. They're still there.
Gotcha. So tell me, I've read your bio. I know about you through other radio shows as well as your own. I'm a Patreon subscriber of yours, and I would encourage other people to do the same. So what's your relationship to God? I know you had an experience in the 70s with evangelicals. Can you expand on that with me and let me know about that and what your feelings are as far as your gifts and your relationship with God?
Sure. Well, first off, my relationship with God is like everyone else's, I suppose. It's a personal relationship where you develop your own language and ideas and feelings about it. Mine probably are a little bit different because the things that I see and the pieces of information I've come across while I was doing these psychic things. I believe God is, it's not a male or female. It's a presence. It's God. I don't know what to say about that, but God is real. And it pervades everything. That you pick up a rock and there's an element of God, and they're holding that stupid rock together, I suppose. As far as the evangelicals go, when I had left home, I moved into an apartment in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And my cousins were really deep into doing drugs. I'm talking about whatever. And I wasn't. The worst I ever did was smoke pot, and not much of that. Anyway, they were deep into it.
They were doing like psychedelics and things like that, right?
Mescaline, cocaine, whatever. I mean, there were even people around them that were shooting up heroin. And that was just creepy to me. I could see their energy. I saw what it was doing, and it was just like, I just don't like being around this. So they went to this place called the Lighthouse in Elizabethtown, and the next thing you know, I'm seeing my cousin, and she's a real pretty gal, and she's just all, blissed out and happy. How did that happen? Well, I went to this place called the Lighthouse. So I went there to check it out. These people were evangelicals, very similar to Holy Rollers, or Pentecostals, as they're properly called. And I hung out there. It was a nice group of people. When they discovered that I could do things, healing things, they discovered it because this guy had a broken leg in a cast. And, they believe, well, God can heal anything. Well, that's kind of what I believe too. But I was never around people that ever talk like that. So I just, put my hands on there, took a look inside, saw the break. It was a spiral fracture is what it was. So I just brought it back together, and it was fine. They cut the cast off. The guy's walking around, stomping his leg on the ground. No pain. Everybody's happy. Gets back to the people who are running the place. And now I'm a fall favorite of the Lighthouse. Well, in order to do that, in order to be there, you have to say the right words. And if you don't, then there's something wrong with you. You must have demons. So I learned how to say, different prayers and, praise God and, things like that. It was all a bit phony to me, but I like being around these folks, so I acquiesced. Finally, the fellow running the place, a minister, called me to his office. He wanted me to become an evangelical minister. Well, my hair was long. I finally got some love beads. I had these love beads on. They're real pretty. They kind of stretched,
Right.
And my T-shirt is sleeveless. I was wearing bell bottoms and tennis shoes.
You look the part.
I was trying to be a hippie. I thought that was so cool.
Right.
And hippies in the middle of Kentucky was not really a thing, but I wanted to try and do it. So anyway, he's telling me that he'll pay for it, send me to minister school, the seminary. And all I need to do is a couple things. I have to wear a certain kind of clothes. I have to stop drinking beer, which I didn't really drink much beer anyway. I have to stop smoking pot. Well, at that time, I really liked pot. I had to stop smoking cigarettes, and I had to stop listening to rock and roll. Well, that's a breaker right there, just the rock and roll. So he said, you do that and you're in. You'll have a car, you'll have plenty of money, you'll have the women you want, blah, blah, blah. He really said that. And I said, you know something? I don't think so. because I don't know. Why do you think I need it? Because God says you need to do this. And I said, God never told me that. So who told you this? God told me. I said, well, I don't know who your God is, but I don't like him very much because God likes me just the way I am. Well, then I got kicked out of there and I got kicked out of the lighthouse and I just went on my merry way. And that's that story.
So from there, did the near-death experience occur after that in the chronology of your story?
Yeah, it did. That was back, golly, you think about it, it doesn't seem that long, but it was, 20th century. That was about 72, I'm thinking, because I was right out of high school. I was like 18 years old. And by the time that by the time I got to Phoenix, it would be 1980.
Okay.
A lot of water into the bridge. And I was working on, because my background's electronics and technology, so I just intuitively know how to build things. So I designed a microphone switcher, put it up in the top of an airplane hangar. The flooring gave way, and I fell. And when I fell, I hit the concrete floor. You know how tall those things are. They're really tall.
Yeah, like 20 feet.
And, oh, no. We're talking 50 feet minimum.
Whoa, okay. I didn't know that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's just maybe 60. I mean, because planes, the great big, tail fin in the back,
Yeah.
They're huge. Anyway, I fell, and next thing I know, I'm sitting there. I don't know what I was sitting on, but I'm sitting there like my legs are dangling off the edge of a high rise. I'm looking down, and there I am. I'm dead. And I muttered to myself, well, I'll go to hell. Look at that. I'm dead. And it felt pretty good. So next thing you know, there's this voice that says, Jerry, what are you doing here? And I said, well, take a look. I'm dead. So you can't stay here. And I said, well, I don't know about that. It feels pretty good. I kind of like it. No, you have to go back right now. And boom, I was blown back into my body, and it hurt, struggling to breathe. But I remembered everything about that event, because there's a lot more I haven't mentioned to you. But I remembered everything about that event, all the details. And the one thing I came back with was an understanding that an act of kindness is never wasted. So I changed my life. The voice also said, you can't stay here because you haven't even started doing what you're supposed to be doing yet. I didn't know what that meant. Anyway, I came back, muddled through life a little bit farther. I eventually ended up in a marriage, almost 18 years. Talk about UFOs, talk about healing, talk about psychic stuff. Oh, that's just a bunch of hooey. I don't want to hear about it. It's just make-believe. And people are going to think you're crazy. Meanwhile, my electronics company took off. I was doing well, working hard. And right about 40 years old, after suppressing it for so long, it's like holding a cork underwater. Your grip slips and it popped back to the surface. And all this stuff started flooding in, all of it. And there was no one to talk to. So I broached the subject again. And I was being made fun of now by her and her daughter. So I decided I've had enough of this. I'm either going to have to kill myself or just get a divorce. Well, I didn't know what to do. I was really unhappy. And then a whole series of events happened while I was in South America. I was taking people on trips to Peru.
Wait, hold on for a second. How did you go from Arizona to Peru? What was your catapult to get you there? What was the catalyst?
Well, eventually the events in Peru led me to meeting Kathy, and not in a vague way, but and in a very absolutely spooky, specific way. And she, like myself, has her own unique abilities. You know, she's very quiet about it, but she's also one of the smartest people I know. And eventually we went down to Peru to live because we love adventure and exploring. So it had nothing to do with the healing, but we went down there to look for lost cities and to film documentaries.
So
that was
you divorced wife one, and then got back on track and got to Peru, and then you met Kathy in Peru or Kathy before Peru?
No, I met Kathy before I was divorced.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right.
There's an ebook on our site. It's called Fantastic Journeys. What was it called? The Prophecy or something. It's about 53 pages or so, and it really details every step of the way what happened with Kathy and me and all that stuff. Okay. But that's how we ended up in Peru. And of course, in Peru, I don't know how these people know. I mean, you're in the middle of the damn jungle, and yet these people know that I'm a healer. And so I'm being requested at different villages and in the city and in hospitals. And, you know, of course, there's a point where the word just got out, but then I'm doing that kind of work in Peru as well. So we didn't stay there very long, about a year, and we did it twice. And both times I'm off and on working on people. I can't speak the language, you know, I had to learn some Spanish, but worked on folks, and it worked really well. Cleared out one wing of a hospital once of very, very ill children. So, you know, it just happened like that. And now we're back here in the States, and here we are.
So do you remember the first time you healed someone and what that was like? How did it feel to you?
A person, it was fun, but it wasn't for them. You know, what happened is that this old fellow came over. We had one of these small Ford Cub tractors, and he's putting along and brought it back to our farm. It had rained. It was muddy. He steps off this thing in his galoshes. His foot slips off the back of that little metal thing you step on, and he twisted his knee badly. So now he's going, oh, Swanee, and he's rubbing his knees. That's part of the vernacular there, I suppose, the colloquialism instead of cussing. So he's rubbing his knee. I help him get over to a chunk of wood that was from a tree that was cut down, so he could sit down on this. That was our lawn chairs, you know, big round pieces of wood. And he sat there and he's rubbing it, and I'm sitting there looking at him, and he's got to walk like a mile to get home. So I'd already been working on animals. So I just put my hand on his knee and said, well, let me just take a look. He said, careful, it's very tender. I took a look inside. I saw what had happened. You know, he'd really strained this one ligament that runs through the knee, and it was starting to swell, and he was going to be hurt for a while. So I just went ahead and fixed it. And then I said, does that feel any better? And he's got this look in his face, and he's rubbing his knee, and he stands up, and he's bending his knee, and he's like, what did you do, boy? And I said, I don't know. I just wanted to see if I could help you feel better. He looked at me like he'd seen a ghost, and he said, you just stay away from me. And he just walked on across the field. That was my first experience. They got better after that.
And when you say you look inside, what does look inside mean?
Well, it depends on if I'm in person or not in person. It pretty much is the same. It's just more fun for me if it's in person. But because of the way the world is right now, in person isn't practical. Plus, people all over the world are wanting to have time with me. They can't get here, and I sure can't get there. So I do it by phone. But to answer your question, I basically will just connect to the person, close my eyes, and I'll just take a look. And there'll soon be the outline of the person, and then I'll see them pretty clearly and see the energy around them. And then I'll go inside, because they're telling me, well, I've got this problem with my whatever. And I'll just go down inside and move around till I get to that place, and I'll take a look to see what it is. Sometimes it's straightforward. Other times they have these these symptoms of things going on, and they're being treated for the symptoms, but they're not really being treated for the actual cause of the symptoms, And then I find that, and many times, it's not something I can help with. I just tell them, go to the doctor, tell them to look at this. And, then they'll do that. And of course, if the doctor listens, they'll find it. And then, that's probably about 30% of the time, 40%. And the rest of the time, I just go in and try to fix it. And I tell them what they can do. Because a lot of times you can do things for yourself.
Sure.
And so I tell them what they can do to fix themselves. And then if they do it, swell, they're going to be fine.
Got it.
If they don't, then they won't be fine.
So I've read that you're sometimes able to brush by a person and detect things going on with them. So you must be really fun at parties and airports.
I've learned to turn this off. It's back when I was, I don't know, in my late 30s, closer to 40, when this really started keying on. I'd brush by people, and it's like a movie playing really fast, but you can see every frame, or you get their emotions, or if there's something wrong with them, you can feel what's wrong. They've got a sore hip. Oh, my hip and lower back hurt. And sometimes, they have loved ones who are nearby. Not so much while I'm walking around, though. But, basically, I've had to learn to turn this off, because well, first of all, seeing all the film strip stuff I talked about, I call it psychic voyeurism, and I don't want that. I don't want to see stuff like that. So, turn it off. As far as the pain, I kind of have a policy that if you don't ask me to help you, then I really shouldn't. But in some cases, it's unavoidable, like children or people in a coma, that sort of thing. But usually, I keep all this, dialed way back, because, it's crazy. And I'm sure your viewers won't really understand this, but my hand will just get blazing hot. Like if I had it, I don't know, just in really hot water, and before it could really hurt me, I pull it out and I put it on your body, and it's doing it now. It's just that hot. I have to consciously keep that dialed back. But when I'm in sleep, going to sleep at night, like, Kathy and I go to bed and I go to cuddle, I'll put my hand, on her. And within 2 or 3 minutes, she's going, my God, your hand is so hot.
Turn that thing off.
Yeah, it's like, well, I was going to sleep. It just sort of, when I go to sleep, all that stuff just comes right back on again, which makes it really crazy if you're staying in a hotel room.
Yeah, it's almost like you're connecting to a cosmic heating pad.
Well, not just that, but the impressions and memories and in the bed you're sleeping in.
Oh, yeah, you're getting like imprints.
Oh, yeah, weirdest dreams ever.
Yeah.
Just the strangest stuff. That's why we got the Phaeton, which is where I'm at right now. It's a 40-foot diesel pusher, right, so we can travel around and still have our own bed. Because if I'm laying there, doesn't matter how tired I am, I go to sleep and I'm seeing all these. If 100 people slept there, I may not have enough time at night to see everything that happened.
Holy cow. That's pretty incredible. So you can shut that off a little bit, but not all the way, right? I assume that it just is there.
It's always there. I've just learned how to not pay attention to it.
Okay. Like it's funny because it's like the alarm clock in the morning. You just learn to, I'll sleep through that.
Yeah. And that's kind of, that's a very good analogy, because the alarm clock goes off. I don't hear it.
Exactly. You're so used to it. So the video clip that I played at the initial onset of this YouTube was from Fox News, and it was a gentleman who was, and everybody is going to see this as we chat about it, but he was hit by multiple people. He was beaten up. And when you entered the hospital room per his wife's request, and you worked on him, can you explain a little bit about do you feel as well as see? Like when you touched him or touched his shoulder, did you feel his pain or just see his pain, or what was that like?
I basically experienced the damage in his body. How it got there, I didn't want to know. None of that stuff was important. All that was important at that point was that he was injured. What I didn't know when I went in there was that his wife had been told he might not live the next couple of hours. And yet I wasn't told that. And I went in and just proceeded. When I got finished, I thought, it looked like it to me. I fixed a whole bunch of stuff. I couldn't fix his left eye. The doctors had done something and it would never work again. But the rest of it I was able to address. And I went out and told his wife, he's going to wake up tomorrow. He's going to have a terrific headache, but he's going to be fine. Well, she had just been told, before I got there, that not to expect him to live through the afternoon. So a friend of mine who was there, he was just, flabbergasted because, he knew this and I didn't. But sure enough, as you can tell in the video, he turned out quite well. Yeah. The doctors were all surprised. The brain bleeding, the swelling, all that stuff just came right down. He was back home in a few days.
Truly miraculous. So I've heard you talk about the fact that you give the illness or the ailment back to God, and God accepts it willingly. Can you elaborate on that for me?
Sure. Well, the way it works, let's say, for example, I'm working on you, and you've got some XYZ that's just really not good. So I'm going to pull that in the way that I do things. I'm really going through a very short discourse on it, but I'm going to pull that into me. The reason I do that is, first of all, because I want to know what you're experiencing. The blessing is that as a healer, I'm now capable of experiencing all these illnesses that have occurred for all of these people I've worked on, and really experience it without actually having had it. So that gives me wisdom. Once I have that and the person is better, then I'll go out, have a cigarette, and give that to God. That's my gift to God. God, as far as I've been able to tell, doesn't care if you're giving a flea or, a fly dropping or a bar of gold. They all mean the same thing to God, and God's very grateful to accept it. Well, it goes from the person to me, from me to God, and meanwhile, it's going from God to the person. And the blessing for me is that I get to have these experiences. A lot of people who are doing healing work are very busy trying to protect themselves. They're bringing in the light and calling in angels to protect them from whatever these, boogers are that you might get on you. Sorry to say, that's such a big misconception. Everything is of God. And the light, what you're trying to protect yourself from, isolates you. You're operating in fear at that point. You can't do anything in fear. You'll be very, very limited to do much of anything with fear. So you're starting the process with fear. You're supposed to start the process with hope. And number two, if you don't bring it into yourself and understand it, how can you become a more effective healer? You can't be afraid that God's not going to take it. God made a promise, and God never breaks a promise, ever. We're the ones that break promises. not God. And number three, the light that they're looking for, that they're trying to bring in, they are the light. They're not understanding that. You see, you are the light that you've been looking for. So embrace that instead. It isn't some high mystical and high strangeness and you weren't chosen by God, so you don't have it. God chose all of us to help each other. So, just do it. Don't be afraid. Start living.
Have you heard of the term earthing before?
Yeah, it's a very valid term.
Yeah. So
put your feet in the dirt.
When people take their shoes off and they walk in the sand or the mud or the grass, they're reconnecting with the earth in a way that's like a closed loop, right?
Yeah.
What I'm seeing in my head of what you're doing is you're connecting that loop, but through the earth and through the universe and looping it back around. Does that make sense?
Sure, it makes great sense.
Okay.
That's a good way of putting it.
Okay.
The terminology of God, everyone has their own vision of what that means and their own version of the definition. I like your version just fine because the cosmos is full of energy. And in a quantum mechanical way, you're basically changing the energy from one point to another. And, it can work quite well if you know how to do it.
Okay. So you're laying hands on people, you're seeing a change, you can brush by people, you get a sense of what's going on. When God takes back the illness or the ailment, and then you smoke a cigarette, what's the cigarette? What part of that, is that just your routine, or is there some cleansing element? Tobacco and the Native Americans. I'll throw that out there.
Well, it could be like I've told so many people, because they go, "Oh, you're a healer. How could you be doing that?" There are two things, well, aside from Kathy and my bass guitar, there are two things that make me very, very happy. A cup of coffee and a cigarette. As long as I'm happy, I'm functional. And the weird thing is, I have had mentors over the years, extraordinary people. Ingo Swan was a great friend of mine. And Kathy, too. He loved Kathy. Good friends of ours for years. I could name a whole bunch of people, but the point here is this. They all smoked. And the reason they said that they were having a cigarette is because it helped them to focus everything and reconnect everything the way it's supposed to be. Whether it's a psychic or a medium or whoever. I know there are folks out there who are doing these things who don't smoke. I think it's just a thing for a person, really, whatever it is you like to do. But if you're not doing what you like to do, you're denying yourself that pleasure. And eventually it's going to create an issue because you're going to resent the fact that you're not doing it. And that's going to take you down.
When I was in acupuncture college, I remember we had a class called Heal the Healer. And we were told to take care of ourselves in a way that doesn't deplete our energy reserves as we're giving energy to other people. And one of the things that they suggested was to keep something with water in the room that you're working on people with to absorb negativity, right? So a fish tank or a vase with water, whatever it was. And then the other things that they talked about, sleep, earthing, taking Chinese herbs if you're feeling run down, that kind of thing. When you do so much of this, like I control my environment because I see a patient, I can, wash my hands of it, do a little cleanse, get into the next situation. And I do 7, 8, 9, 10 of those a day. When you're constantly on and you are manifesting for many people, and I'm assuming, I don't know how many people you're healing on a regular basis daily, but how do you, besides the cigarette and the cup of coffee, is that all you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, In your world, in your way of thinking, and there's no judgment here. I'm just telling you how the comparison is.
Sure.
The energy that I'm using for healing doesn't come from me. It comes from God. So it runs through me. And when it keys on, there's a tangible feeling, like the hot hands thing. Sometimes my whole body just gets crazy hot. I don't get disoriented, but I can be just absolutely tired on my ass. And there's someone who needs my help. And it's like, okay, let's do this. I can be so tired. Good example, in Florida, guy with throat cancer. I had been working on 8 people that day. And, I was wore out. I just wanted to have a cup of coffee and a cigarette. The guy shows up. It's like, okay. I kneeled down on a pebble deck by the pool. And this was in Florida. It's in St. Pete. That hurt my knees.
Yeah.
I wasn't used to pebble decks. But still, I'm focused. Put my hand on his throat, other hand on his back. I'm looking. There it is. Okay, I suck it into myself. I give it back to God. And end result is he no longer had cancer. It sounds like a real fast transition, but I heard about everything days later. He couldn't even swallow. Couldn't even drink water. When I got done, he was able to drink water. And within a few days, it was just gone. Well, anyway, the point here is this. I don't need to cleanse myself because I give it back to God. God just takes it all. So what is there to cleanse? If I think that I have to cleanse, maybe I'm operating in a state of anxiety. Anxiety is just one of the facets of fear. So it would limit my ability to go farther and deeper because it's always in the back of my mind, if I were doing it this way. As far as having something around to absorb the negative energy, I'm supposed to be doing that, not something else.
And the absorption, I'm going to think of you like a sponge. So you're absorbing. And then sometimes you got to go wring it out. That doesn't happen to you.
No, because it's a two-way communication stream between me and the cosmos, okay. God, creator, Buddha, whatever. I'm just pulling it in. The only reason I hold on to it so I can understand what it feels like to be that person.
Okay.
And I hold on to it consciously because God somehow, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just impressed on me. I could if I wanted to. Okay. So it just goes straight through, off to God. Other stream comes in like a two-way stream of energy flowing, and and I don't have any problems. Sure, I mean you figure you get tired. I've done events where I had a room of 58 people, and they all wanted me to work on them. I started at 10 in the morning, and I got done at 10 at night. And the only time I stopped was a couple times to have a cup of coffee. That's about it.
So we had some technical difficulties. So Jerry, you were telling me that you had about 58 people in a room. Right. Expand on that for me.
Well, there were about 58 people in this room. I had shown up for one of my events, and I worked on every one of them. And it went from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, maybe 11. And yeah, I was pretty tired, but every time I worked on someone, I got a boost of energy and I went on to the next person. I didn't stop to eat all day long. And the only thing that I had was a cup of coffee and a cigarette every few hours, just to kind of relax. What's that, Kat? Did I have a sandwich?
I threw you a bone.
Oh, I chewed on a bone. Kathy threw me a bone.
I threw him a bone once in a while.
Oh, that's awesome. It's like my dog, he gets a bone every once in a while.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it is. But yeah, I just kept going. And I would say out of 58 people, there were a couple that didn't have much help, but most everyone else was pretty astonished. Some of them stayed the whole 12 hours. I was just surprised because usually, what I tell folks is after I worked on you, stick around if you want to, but you're free to go. Just let me know how you're doing. And about half the crowd left and the other half just stayed to the very end.
So that was going to bring me to my next question was when does this not work? I've heard you talk about it on other shows, but I want you to tell the audience when do things not go right?
Well, there are two reasons why it won't work. I only just usually mention one, but for you, I'm going to tell you two. Number one is if I'm working on someone and a big dog comes up and starts growling and barking really, really close to me, like a big Scooby-Doo kind of dog.
Right.
That rattled me so bad I couldn't do anything because I was eyes closed, deep into it. And all of a sudden, roar, 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 right here. I mean, it was a Great Dane, full grown. So that rattled me. That doesn't work when that happens. Something weird like that happens. The other thing, and probably the most important, is sometimes people have things going wrong with them, and this is their path back. We all have our path back to the Creator, whatever we conceive the Creator to be. But we have this thing in our life. We're trying to become closer to the Creator, to become more in tune with what the Creator is, let's say. And sometimes the thing that's wrong with a person, that's part of their path. And when that happens, instead of getting my hands will just get really hot, and I'll get like this close to the person, and they'll just go cold, just like you put them in ice water. And when that happens, I know, okay, I can't do it. If I push it, then it sucks the energy out of me. It's like God unplugs and says, no. I've had a few occasions where I was working on someone and the cold and draining didn't happen, but the person just turned to me and said, no, don't do that. The person was in a coma, in a delirium coma.
I remember this story that as you told it on your show.
So, it freaked me out, freaked everybody out, really. And I thought, the person's delirious in a coma. So I'll try again. Went to the other side of the bed, and she says, I told you no. So it's like, okay, that's it. I'm done.
And did you have to tell the family that she was just not interested, right? Is that what happened?
They were standing right over there.
Oh, okay.
That's why it was so freaky, because she was just like, eyes rolling around, and there's a dog on the ceiling, just mumbling things. Nothing coherent.
Right.
In and out of consciousness. I step up, and she's like completely with it. And she tells me no.
Wow.
So it freaked them out too.
Yeah. So in some cases, it's not going to happen because the will of God is not that.
Exactly.
Understood. I was going to ask you, one of the ways that I have 6 degrees of separation from you and Kathy is Dr. Jorge Fletches.
Mm-hmm.
And I was following his work many years ago when I first started my practice. I had a multidisciplinary practice. It was acupuncture, functional medicine, supplements, and so on. And it was a big practice. And I remember doing the iodine loading tests and having the test kits in my office and all of that. And I know you and Kathy are big into supplements. Could you tell the audience a little bit about what you do to stay healthy from that perspective, and how you sometimes will get a data download from God about what to tell another person they might, and I know you're not giving medical advice, but a suggestion or a recommendation.
Sure. Yeah, and it happens frequently because there's some things you should be using. As far as the iodine goes, Dr. Fletches was instrumental in me trying it and maintaining it. We maintained it for over 10 years. Now we do it about once a month. We don't do it every day. But the reason is because I've learned more about the iodine and how it can cause not really an issue, but it changes the parameters and how the thyroid is addressing the regulatory aspect of sex-binding hormone globulin. And I'm still researching that. So until I understand that better, that's going to be a thing. Anyhow, the things that we use and the things that I tell people, I always tell people to try the things that I've tried. That way, at least I know what they're doing. But we use 20,000 units of vitamin D3 every day. With that, we also use a triple K, and it's about 500 micrograms of triple K. We also use N-acetylcysteine, about 2.5 grams of that every day, called NAC. And a few times a week, we'll use citrulline malate, which boosts the nitric oxide in your blood, protects your arterial system, your vascular system, really. B12, anytime you're using an amino acid, if you don't have enough B12, you're not having full synthesis and use of those amino acids. We use a zinc acetate, which is a better form of zinc to use, which only means it gets into your cells more easily. That's used about every other day or every third day. And that's really about it. I mean, there's a handful of things we could use. There's a lot of things. For example, if you're a man and you have a prostate issue, it's like, what am I going to do? I had this happen. It took me a few days to fix this. Holy hell. Anyway, if you're a man over 50 and you're starting to have prostate issues, why not just try 20,000 IU of D3 and some vitamin K? See what happens. There's scientific research on it to support this.
Are you suggesting that was for benign prostate hypertrophy, the swelling of the prostate, or for prevention of prostate cancer when the numbers go up?
Both.
Okay, gotcha. So prostate health in general.
Yeah. I could go into it very deeply because I researched it for years. I had to know this because of my own situation. I went from a 6.8 down to a 1.7 in 30 days.
A 6.8?
PSA.
Yeah, were they just ready to cut you up?
They were. I told them they were crazy. I said, what the hell's wrong with you? That's the only technique you know.
Right.
What about this? What about that? What about that? These are all AMA approved techniques. Never heard of them before. And I said, I feel bad for your patients.
Yeah.
This is the only option you have.
So, yeah, weird question. So, can you tap into the God energy for your health as well, for you? Can you heal you? Or can Kathy heal you if you've got something going on?
Kathy's my emergency room psychic department. I had a big hole in my right knee from a fall. And I won't go into the details. It was just a damn big hole and it was gushing blood and it was awful. We were outside in the hot Arizona sun. Well, anyway, I said, Kathy, I'm going to shock. Put your hand on here and just, hold it there and heal it. Well, she put her hand right on the bloody mess and just closed her eyes. And after about 2 minutes, the pain went away. In 3 minutes, there wasn't any more blood leaking down my legs. She pulled her hand off. And I said, let's wash this off. We have to make sure this wound is clean. Wash it off. The skin wasn't even broken. That was astonishing to me. As far as healing myself, yeah, I have quite a few times. Anything from, falling off a mountain, dislocated shoulder, dislocated elbow. That's the elbow. And this bone right here was sticking out like that. Skin off my hands, broken ribs, It was a big mess. I still had to get up and walk about a mile to where Kathy was. Well, anyhow, that was healed. The skin was back. The integrity of my skin was back in 24 hours. And the bones, they took about, I don't know. I mean, we were back in Lima in 5 days. And when they x-rayed me, there was no breaks of any kind, no sign of it. So I don't know. They heal pretty fast too. I've always healed very quickly.
Yeah. Do you ask for guidance from God energy when you look into supplements for yourself, like with the PSA number and doing D3 and K? Did that give you the direction that you wanted?
Yeah, it did. Just about everything in that department comes from some other resource. There's a place that I go to called the Cafe at the End of the Universe. That's what I call it. And there are these ancient dudes that are there from all different times. It's kind of a common meeting place for all of us. And sometimes I go there and they tell me things. Well, what they're telling me doesn't really make sense in our 21st century world. So I have to look into it more deeply. And sometimes I can figure it out. But sometimes the information comes from them. Other times it's just like dropped into my thoughts, and I go looking into it. It's like, oh, how about that? So sometimes it just comes blowing in, and sometimes, it's a process. But it seems like all the information I've been given to help myself works really well for other people. And that's the reason why, I suggest it to others.
So the Cafe at the End of the Universe is a metaphor for your meditative space, your download space?
I guess so. But it's actually a place I go to out of body. I go have a cup of coffee and a cigarette there and watch the edge of the universe, because I'm right here and the edge of the universe is there, and kind of look into the rest of the universe from the outside edge looking in.
Gotcha. So I have a client who saw your video 2 weeks ago. I showed her the Fox video with the gentleman that got beat up in your work. And she said, I'm trying to remember exactly, she said that you were of, I can't remember the name of the term, but when she saw your face, she said you were part of an ancient alien race. And she said it out loud to me. I'll have to offline tell you what exactly she said. I'll have to text her. But she said your gifts are otherworldly, is what she was trying to say. She's a healer, spiritual person herself, and she doesn't lay hands on people. She does it more emotionally for people, people that have had, just bad relationships or severe depression or whatever.
Yeah.
And she reads cards as well. So I wanted to tell you that on her behalf. Her name is Diane. So I'm letting you know.
We're all ancient alien races. There wouldn't be any people on Earth if it wasn't for ancient alien races. We just forgot who we are.
That's a whole other show for us to go on, So I think with that, we're a little over the hour, and I want to wrap up. Jerry, can you explain to the YouTube audience how they can listen to you, read about you, and sort of connect with you on your show?
Sure. Well, if you want to be a person that gets the inside track, access to a whole bunch of information, just go to Jerry Wills Show. It's WILLS, by the way, jerrywillsshow.com. Look through there. You can look through the members area. You can look through what's available free of charge. There's a lot of stuff in there in both areas, much more in the members area. If you decide you want access to like the green drink that Kathy created, or any of the interviews, whether they're audio or video, because they're all audio, by the way, but there's mostly video files. There's an equal number of video files. Anyway, become a patron. You can do that for as little as $2. We encourage a higher amount. So $1,000 is really good. But if you can't go there, well, $2 is fine. 15, really, it gets you everything. So, whatever you want to do.
Not 1,500, 15, 15.
15, yep. 15. Unless, of course, you're counting it in pesos, and it'd be some obscure figure no one would understand. As far as getting a hold of me, jerrywills.com is the other web address. You can drop me a
If they want a healing, is that where they go?
Yeah, but they need to read through everything. Don't write me a book. Just write, a paragraph.
Really far behind.
And I'm really, really far behind. So I won't be answering real fast, but I will answer. Things I can't heal should be made a mention of. That has to do with can't regrow teeth. That's a big one. Can't regrow limbs. Ringing in the ears. Sketchy. Probably won't happen. Making your eyesight better. 50-50. But going after things inside the body? Yeah, probably. At least I'll find out what's causing it. And if I can find out what's causing it, if I can't fix it, I can tell you what you could do for yourself.
Okay.
That's it.
Very good. I appreciate you being on the show. It was really special. I've been preparing for this for a while because I've mutual friend, William Stickevers. That's how I learned about you initially. And I saw him on your show and I was glued to your show ever since. So that was how I made the full circle with you guys. And my website is tammybennettomd.com. I do telehealth and traditional Chinese medicine herbs and recommendations for dietary considerations and supplements and things like that. And I do see patients as well. And like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, Tammy.